Have you ever, like, stopped and thought about why some memories are, crystal clear, like videos playing in your head,
Hmm.
and others were just gone, like poof, vanished?
Yeah.
Or like how a certain smell can instantly transport you back to childhood.
Oh, yeah.
Huh?
Like Proust and his mandolins.
Right, exactly. It's amazing how that works, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So for this deep dive, we're going to explore the science behind memory.
Cool.
We've got some fascinating psychological research to unpack here.
Sounds good.
We'll be looking at the different stages memories go through
Okay.
and how our brains decide, you know, what to hold on to
Right.
and what to just let go.
Fascinating.
Speaking of letting go, just the other day, I was looking everywhere for my glasses. I was
Mm.
convinced I'd left them in the linen closet.
The linen closet.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Turns out they were on my head.
Oh, wow. Classic.
Yeah, the brain can be pretty tricky sometimes.
It sure can.
Anyway, our goal today is to understand how our brains take in information, store it, and then somehow retrieve it later.
Right.
We're going to try to come away with a clearer understanding
I like it.
of this crucial part of being human.
Yeah. I think that's a great goal. So where do we start?
Well, the research we're diving into breaks memory down into three main stages,
Stages.
like information moving through different holding areas in your brain.
Interesting.
First up is sensory memory.
Sensory memory.
Got it. Now, the sources don't give us a ton of detail on this one,
Okay.
but think of it as that first fleeting impression.
Right.
Like a super quick flash of everything your senses pick up.
Okay.
What you see, hear, touch, smell, taste.
Makes sense.
It's like a temporary buffer
Uh-huh.
holding on to that sensory information just for a split second.
Right, right. And then what?
Well, if you don't pay attention to it,
Yeah.
it's gone.
Poof.
Exactly. Poof. Like it never happened.
Wow.
It's like the after image you see after a camera flash.
I see.
Just a quick burst, and then it fades.
So if we do pay attention, what happens next?
Then things get more interesting.
Okay.
That's when it moves to the second stage.
Uh-huh.
Working memory,
Working memory.
sometimes called short-term memory.
Got it.
This is where information you're actually focused on gets processed
Okay.
and temporarily held.
Right. So it's not just passively sitting there. Right.
Absolutely not. It's
Yeah.
not just storage.
That's
It's more like an active workspace.
Interesting.
The research explains that working memory relies on these neural circuits
Neural circuits.
involving your sensory cortices.
The parts of the brain that process the senses.
Exactly. And your frontal lobes, which are involved in things like attention and decision making.
Right.
So in your working memory, you're manipulating information,
Ah,
getting it ready for immediate use.
I see. Like a mental workbench.
Exactly, like a mental workbench.
Cool.
So give me a real world example. How would someone use their working memory?
Okay. So imagine someone gives you a phone number.
Okay, yeah.
You'll repeat it to yourself.
Right.
Just long enough to dial it.
Makes sense.
That's your working memory. Keeping that information active and available.
Until you need it.
Exactly.
So we've got sensory memory, that quick initial grab,
Right.
and working memory, the temporary holding and processing zone.
Got it.
Now, how do we turn these fleeting experiences into long-term memories?
Ah, the million-dollar question.
The ones we can recall weeks, months, even years later.
Right.
What's the key?
Well, this is where the hippocampus takes center stage.
The hippocampus.
Yep. This part of the brain is crucial for forming long-term memories.
Interesting.
The research highlights that important information from your working memory
Okay.
gets transferred to the hippocampus,
Right.
where it goes through a process called encoding.
Encoding. So what's happening during encoding?
It's like the brain is converting short-term information
Uh-huh.
into a format that can be stored long-term.
Got it. So is the hippocampus like a storage unit for memories?
It's more like a librarian, I guess.
A librarian.
Yeah. But instead of just putting books on shelves,
Okay.
it's carefully cataloging information, tagging it, making connections to existing knowledge.
Wow, so it's really organized.
Yeah, it has to be. This process is key to how well a memory is formed.
And how easily we can retrieve it later.
Exactly.
I like that, the brain's librarian. So the hippocampus does this initial organizing, but what makes these memories stick around for the long haul?
Right, so that brings us to memory consolidation.
Consolidation.
The research explains that the neural firing patterns
Uh-huh.
that were active when you first experienced something,
Okay.
they don't just stop.
They keep going.
They keep looping
Hmm.
between the hippocampus and the cortex.
Interesting.
This repeated firing strengthens the connections.
So it's like the brain is rehearsing the event.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, to
Yeah.
make sure those connections become really strong and stable over time.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, it could explain why we remember significant events more vividly.
Exactly. The more emotionally charged an experience, the stronger the neural activity.
The more likely it is to stick.
Right.
This whole idea of repetition and strengthening.
Yeah.
It reminds me of learning to play guitar.
Oh, how so?
At first, I had to consciously think about every chord change.
Doubtfully.
But with practice, it became automatic.
You didn't even have to think about it.
Right. I bet that's consolidation in action.
Absolutely. Those neural pathways got stronger and stronger with every repetition.
Until the memory was just there.
Ingrained, like muscle memory.
Exactly. Now, the sources also talk about the biological side of memory.
Right. The physical structures in the brain.
They mention this neuroscientist, Wilder G. Penfield.
Oh, yeah, Penfield. He did some fascinating work on epilepsy.
And he found a link between stimulating certain brain regions and the recall of specific memories.
Amazing, right?
It really highlights the connection between brain activity and our experiences.
Absolutely. And when we talk about the brain, we're talking about this vast network of neurons.
Neurons.
Those specialized nerve cells.
Right, I've heard of them.
There are like 86 billion of them in the human brain.
86 billion. That's mind-blowing.
Right.
So these neurons, they're all interconnected,
Yeah, they communicate with each other through electrical and chemical signals.
forming the pathways for our memories.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that these connections aren't fixed.
They're not.
They can strengthen or weaken over time.
So the more you access a memory,
The stronger that pathway becomes.
making it easier to remember.
It's literally a physical manifestation of learning in memory. Pretty cool, huh?
It really is. It's amazing to think about all this activity happening in our heads.
All the time.
The sources also mention how long it takes the brain to become aware of something.
Yeah, like our reaction time.
It takes about 0.2 to 0.5 seconds for us to consciously register something.
It's super fast, but it does take time.
That means there's all this processing happening before we even know it.
Like a subconscious sorting process.
It makes you wonder how much information we're filtering out constantly.
Definitely. There's a lot going on beneath the surface.
The sources also talked about how memories can be triggered by our surroundings.
Oh, yeah. Like those sense memories that bring back a rush of emotion.
Or how certain smells can evoke specific memories.
Exactly. Context plays a huge role. It's like our experiences are tagged with these little sensory breadcrumbs.
Leading us back to the memory. It's all connected.
It really is. From those fleeting sensations to long-lasting memories, it's all happening in our brains.
It's fascinating how much of our experience is shaped by these processes.
It makes you appreciate the complexity of the human mind.
So, to sum it all up, we've got these three main stages of memory.
Sensory memory, working memory, and long-term memory.
And the hippocampus is like the brain's librarian, organizing everything.
And consolidation makes those memories stick.
Through repetition and strengthening those neural connections.
Right.
It's amazing how what once seemed mysterious now has a clearer structure.
Absolutely. We've gone from wondering why some memories stick.
to understanding the steps involved in creating them.
It's like we've pulled back the curtain and seen the magic behind the scenes.
It makes you wonder what seemingly small moments
Yeah.
might be shaping our long-term understanding of the world right now.
Without us even realizing it, it really makes you think about the power of the present moment.
And how those experiences, however fleeting, contribute to who we become.
Exactly. Each moment is a potential memory in the making.
It's pretty incredible when you think about it.
It really is.
Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. Until next time, keep those memories flowing.
And maybe pay a little more attention to the present moment. You never know what memories you might be making.